surrounded by hatred and trapped by fear. I'm in a box. I've got no place to go. If I follow my mind, I know I slaughter my own. Help me, I'm the prisoner. Won't you hear my plea? I need somebody, yeah, to listen to me. I beg you, brothers and sisters, I'm counting on you, yeah. Black babies in the womb, shackled and bound, chained by the caveman who keeps beauty down, smacked on the ass when they're squalling and wet. Heir to a spineless man who never forgets, never forgets that he's a prisoner. Can't you hear my plea? 'Cause I need somebody, Lord knows, to listen to me. I'm a stranger to my son who wonders why his daddy runs, yeah.
Peace and love, family. You on?
Peace, peace, resurrect. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, man. We on, man. I just want to let the people know, peace and love, family. Welcome to the NEPPC podcast, or rather the NEPPC show. You know, I'm Brother Frank, and usually I'm with my brother Abdul Haq Islam, former political prisoner. But unfortunately, today he had some other things he had to do. But, you know, the show must go on. And I'm with my brother Corey of Holla to let the people know the history of Holla, who you are, and, you know, why is housing important, and let them know the struggle that Holla has been having around housing and how that's connected to the history of our people fighting for decent housing. Because that was one of the points and the 10-point program that the Black Panthers had when they talked about we have right to decent housing.
Peace, Resurrect. What's up, good brother? Peace, everybody. My name is Corey. I'm one of the organizers with Holla. How Our Lives Link All Together. We are a formation that was started in prison following the Attica Rebellion and the development of the 1970 prison rights movement, particularly thinking about the Greenhaven think tank, Eddie Ellis, Larry Lukman White, Hassan Gell. They build youth programs to train and resurrect young people in prison who came into prison really as people who minds, and spirits, was attacked by institutional racism and attacked from the state, and have internalized that and was unleashing that kind of energy on our own selves and our own communities. And they created a program inside prison to not only, remind us and teach us our responsibility to be assets to our community, but to also go back to our communities and fight against the institutions and the factors that attack our community as well. Holla started this formation in the early 2000s. Right now, we came out of prison in 2009, 2010, 2011. I work mostly focused on fighting against the war, fighting against systematic oppression, generational oppression that lands in our internal community, particularly with a focus on young people. And we do that through spiritual development, through youth organizing, and family building. And the issue of housing, the issue of being displaced, that's a long story in African people's relationship to this place that we call the United States of America. A lot of our ancestors and people were displaced when we was brought to this land over here. And that story, has many different iterations. Some people call it gentrification. Some people call it redlining, right? But the forced migration, the great migration, the forced migration. So there's a long legacy, and we still are in that pain, in the wounds of generational displacement, right? And when we think about our Black liberation movement, our Black liberation tradition, right? Our tradition who always have fought back against the state, who never was cool with being displaced. We have always built strategies against the state and with our communities to talk about the importance of not being displaced. And those people, whether they was Ida B. Wells, whether it was Harriet Tubman, whether they was Nat Turner, whether they was Afeni Shakur in the 70s and Lumumba Shakur in the 70s working with housing in the Bronx, connected to the Panthers 21, the state always attack our community leaders, our community spirit that's trying to stand up for liberation, trying to fight against colonization, enslavement, imperialism, displacement, forced migration, gentrification. So the struggle continues. It's a long, ongoing struggle. Recently, in April, Holla was occupying the historical building on 135th Street in Harlem, where Queen Mother Moore laid her roots at, Ella Baker laid her roots at, the Harlem Renaissance, Jackie Robinson, James Baldwin. And for us, more importantly, for us, those are all important. Our legacy is directly connected through all that, through Eddie Ellis, the non-traditional approach, Larry Lukman White, the prison rights movement, right? So Eddie Ellis, the Revolutionary Action Movement, SNCC, Queen Mother Moore, a lot of organizers in Harlem, 66, 65, 67 was working in 135th Street at the old YMCA, and they started the original Black Panther Party, the second iteration of it coming from Alabama. And Holla, through the spirit, we was able to come in contact with the building many generations later. And for two years, we was doing program out the building. street cleanups, serving the young people, passing out food, teaching about the history of the block. All of this is community-specific programs. We ain't asking people to sign up for nothing. We ain't asking people to pay for nothing. You know, we just trying to serve the community. We built a lot of relationships on the block. And then this slum landlord seen us building community, seeing us picking up vibes, seeing us getting energy, and wanted to capitalize off our community struggles. Wanted to turn that into capitalism. And he evicted us, locked the doors, locked us out, locked our property. After we had an MOU, after we established relationships in the community, and we fighting that struggle. You know, we try to do, many tactics. We got an open statement that at some point in the conversation, I would love to read the open statement. But that's some of the struggles that we went through. And that's some of the struggles that our struggles been going through. And this is related to community-specific programming, like I said, that Afeni Shakur, the Panthers 21, Jesse Gray, the Revolutionary Action Movement, SNCC, many of our organizers in Harlem, when we talked about community control over police, right? We want the power to come from the people. People should have self-determination around what kind of our housing conditions, what kind of educational conditions we being lived in, right? And we also understand that these institutions in our community are part of the institution, but a part of the state violence. They don't, not only do they not serve us, they cause violence to our communities. They unhouse us. They miseducate us. And a lot of our political prisoners or people from the 60s and 70s who became prisoners of war or who was a part of that movement of supporting political prisoners, they taught us about community empowerment. They taught us about community struggles, of how we do community struggles over our housings. How do we build tenant formations? I mean, we still got residues of some of those community projects in the Bronx, in Harlem, right? And those people also got attacked, like many of our other leaders, because they were disrupting the hegemony of this empire, and they was raising the contradictions of this empire, and they was teaching the communities, and those things get attacked by the state. So shout out to all of our political prisoners, all of our prisoners of war, and all of our people behind bars. And I close by saying a lot of our political prisoners and prisoners behind bars and prisoners of war and just family behind bars, they family live in our neighborhoods.
Yes, sir.
They daughters go to these schools, they children, they wives, right? We live in these, we the ones be in this house. This is why Dr. Mutula Shakur, rest in peace, our ancestor. This is why Dr. Mutula Shakur was doing his work. He seen what happened to his mother. He seen how these institutions was treating his mother. Right? When we talk about the young lords and some of their stories and their struggles, they seen how the state was treating their mother and their fathers who didn't speak the language. Right? And how these institutions was neglecting them. Right? So we decided that we had to take over Lincoln Hospital. We had to take over the hospital. We had to take matters into our own hands, and the state attacked us for that. Right? So all these issues around community control, our community consciousness around these issues are directly related to the people who struggle most within our communities and how the state attacked those people as well. Thanks, brother.
Absolutely, Ben. Very thorough, very to the point, and I appreciate you giving a historical analysis of the continuation of our struggle for self-determination, because we are engaged in full war of ideas, and that war is going to lead to casualties, martyrs, and political prisoners, or what I like to say, captured freedom fighters. I wanted to read the point that the Black Panthers made on a 10-point program when it said, we want rights to decent housing. It said that we want decent housing fit for shelter of human beings. We believe that if the white landlords will not give decent housing to our Black community, then the housing and the land should be made into cooperatives so that our community with government aid can build and make them decent housing for our people. And I think that, that has to be really understood and internalized, because now when we look at what Holland's going through, and we look at what our people are going through overall when it comes to housing, because there's a lack of affordable housing, there's a number of attacks that's going on. Now, who's going to be the force that's going to resist and stand up? we got a sister by the name of Joy Powell. Joy Powell, prior to her incarceration because of her political activities, she was organizing her community. She was making sure that the rights of the community was being heard by those who had the power to make sure that the community is provided for. And even though she's currently in prison, she's still adamant about what's right and what's wrong, and standing on the side of what's right, regardless of the consequences of her action. So I know that organizing is very important for us today, tomorrow, and the day after, because, our children are watching us, as I've always said on this podcast, and I will continue to say, and we have to be accountable for the lives that they're going to have by what we decide to do today. So that's one of the things that I have tremendous respect for you and the rest of Holla, because you're out there doing the work. You know what needs to be done, and you know why it must be done, because if we don't do it, who else will? And that's the way we show respect to those who are currently in prison, right? Because me and you, we've been on a visit to see Joy Powell, and we're going to make another visit to her. And, when we have time, because I know our schedules are busy, we write to our political prisoners. So we have to keep political prisoners, captured freedom fighters, constantly engaged in our matters, our current matters. And that's the one of the focuses that this podcast is, to relate those issues of the past to the present, and those political prisoners who are currently in prison being casualties of that continuous fight. When you talk about the situation with Holla, and you talk about political prisoners, what importance would you tell people that political prisoners have in the continuation of the fight? Because sometimes people don't include them as much as they could because they're in prison, and people just want to focus on the current fight.
Ashe, peace to that, man. Free Reverend Joy Powell, free all of our political prisoners, free the land, free the land, free the land. That's a beautiful question, man. Like I was saying, going back to Afeni Shakur. What did you want? I'm on the phone. I want an interview. Going back to ancestor Lumumba Shakur, and going back to the Panthers 21, which connect to Baba Sekou, Daruba, many people who were doing community-specific work that got attacked. I think what is critical to understand is that the state want to keep us quiet. The state, I'm glad you read the 10-point program, because the Black Panther Party was really important because they were speaking the truth out in public. I was just talking to one of our elders yesterday, Mama Dr. Cleo Silvers from the Black Panther Party and the Young Lords, and she was talking about how it was important for them to be in the streets every day and let people know why they are in the streets and why they are in the streets for them, for their people, right? And I think it's critical right now with, like you said, with so many of us being unhoused. The homelessness issue is growing every day, particularly in New York or all across the country. A lot of our housing policies that have somewhat protected us with low income and gave us some shelter was the work of the 60s and the 70s that a lot of the political prisoners did. And what the policymakers are doing today and have been doing since the 60s and 70s is have been undoing those policies. And right now we're in a moment where a lot of those undoing of those policies and that work, that community-specific work of talking to people on the streets, because New York, I was talking to another one of our elders, Mama Bibi, once again, who's connected to political prisoner work, was talking about how New York historically has one of the most important and powerful tenant strike movements, right? And that the community really took over housing issues, and a lot of lessons across the country and across the world come from the work that happened in New York. So we always got to study that work, and that work is connected to political prisoners. That's speaking the truth. That's bringing community empowerment. That's honoring the work of the people that got attacked. That's trying to get them free from prison. That's writing to people in prison who was doing that work and asking them questions, talking about learned lessons, building strategies, right? That's also talking to former political prisoners who are home now, still doing the work, still in the community, getting connected to them, asking them, what did you do in the 60s and 70s? How did you build those relationships with the community? How did y'all build tenant strikes? What lessons learned from the work that y'all did in the 60s and 70s and the 80s, and what you see happening now? What advice would you give us right now? Right? How do we add our elders? Because it's not just our political prisoners that's still locked up. It's a lot of our former political prisoners who are home in our communities now that we are not engaging with as well. And for us as individual people in our neighborhoods, where we're getting miseducated, we being unhoused, we being brutally policed and killed by the armed agents of the state. You know, we got to gain our courage to speak up. And we look to our political prisoners. We look to our revolutionary leaders. We look to the people that got the courage to fight for us, to say the truth, right? They give us that inspiration to be like, nah, it's not cool that we living in a garbage can. It's not cool that our people are living in a garbage can, and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to do work around it, right? So that we could live better. So I think it's imperative that we talk to the Dr. Mama Cleo's Silvers, that we talk to the Reverend Joy Powells, who was doing important community work in the Rochester area. And we also learn how the state attack us when we talking the truth, right? Because the state is constantly making new political prisoners and prisoners of war every day. And it's important that we understand how we protect ourselves and how we continue to fortify our communities through relationship and through conversations and through relating to our legacy and to our institutional memory, to our elders, right? And to our elders' work. That's safety. That's how we get safe. That's how we build practices and consciousness and relationship using that institutional memory to make sure that we don't get tricked by the system, to make sure that we don't continue living in conditions and policies that don't serve us, right? So I think there's so many reasons. And lastly, I say once again, our former political prisoners and our political prisoners and prisoners of war, our captured freedom fighters, they come from our neighborhoods. They daughters, they families, they grandmas. You know, they was fighting for our schools, for our housing. You know, this is still our work. This is their family. This is our family that is going through this. So this is a long, protracted struggle, you know, and this is our responsibility to love our political prisoners, to love our family, to love ourselves. And we got to see ourselves as one. We got to see ourselves as the same people, and we can't be separated from our revolutionaries. And when they cage us from speaking the truth, we got to love each other even more. We got to figure out even more creative strategies to be in connection with each other and to honor the work of each other. Ashe.
Ashe, absolutely, man. You said a key word. You said love, right? Love is going to keep us strong. Love is going to help us endure. Love is going to keep us fighting as strong and as powerful as we did when we first started. Because as you also said, it's a protracted struggle. That means there are going to be moments where you're going to be tired and you're going to want some rest. But then you have to look at that child that's looking for you for answers, and even those who are incarcerated who sacrifice and looking for you for attention, for support, for to be able to provide them with the necessary resources. Because we have to think about when our captured freedom fighters, our political prisoners are captured, you know, they have to deal with what the state is going to give them. They are state property, and the state is going to deal with them accordingly, right? They do have rights as prisoners, but, you know, they have to fight and make sure that that right is recognized and respected. One of the ways that they are able to fight is by having people write them, having people visit them, having people say their names, speak them, and have these journalists write about them in articles. So, you know, if we have any journalists that are viewing, you know, take it upon yourself to write an article on a political prisoner. And if you are part of an organization that is claiming to serve the interests of the people, even if you're a nonprofit organization, you know, make sure you teach the people about the history of resistance. And when you teach the people about the history of resistance, you include political prisoners, because that's one of the things that people have to start claiming, and that the political prisoners are identified in this history of resistance. Because often we hear about Martin Luther King, but we don't hear enough about him being a former political prisoner. We don't hear enough about just that aspect of his life, so we can recognize that, you know, he was willing to stand up regardless of those who are attacking him, and we should admire that. and admire those today who are stood up and are standing up and are still persevering. Because I know when we were on that visit with Joy Powell and we speaking to her, and we left her, I still seeing her standing up with her fist in the air. She was indeed unbroken. And that is very inspiring. You know, that makes me want to fight harder to bring her home. And Imam Jamil El-Amin, you know, I know he has health issues, but, you know, if you look at his body of work, it's going to stand the test of time. And when you go back to his body of work and you hear him speaking about America being, violence in America being as like apple pie, you know, it's just embedded in the system, in the fabric of the system. So when he's saying that, he's letting you know what you have to deal with. And that's very courageous for him to say that on a platform like that, because that's letting him know and us know that there's somebody on our side fighting for us, regardless of what's going to happen. So when we talk about political prisoners, as you said, we have to look at them as family, right? Because I remember Professor Small saying, you know, your political family should be more important than your biological family. You know, I don't know how to answer that, but I do know that they're equally important to me. And so when my political family or my biological family call, I'm saying, all right, whose issue is most important at this time? And whoever's issue is most important, you know, that's where I'm going to be. And that's the work that I'm going to do, because it's very discouraging if somebody decides that they're going to participate in organized political action and then they're neglected. And then they decide that, you know, it's no longer for them. They're going to choose another avenue of life. You know, we lost somebody. We could keep somebody engaged and involved, knowing that they are going to be provided for, that we're going to use our resources to make sure that they are right and they are kept safe. So that's another thing I respect about Hala, is that when you're giving a call, you're there. When you tell me that you're going to show up, you're there, and you're a man of your word, and your organization are people of their word. So you are an example in our community of what we need to be and how committed we need to be when it comes to the attack on our community, because we got to stop being relaxed, right? We got to look at the stores we go to, and we are victims of food deserts, food apartheid. We got to look at our children's schools being unfunded and the resources that they don't have that can take them to the next level. That's all forms of attacks. That's all form of violence. Those are a number of methods in which oppressor wants to subjugate us, wants to undermine our development. So we got to take it upon ourselves to do the necessary work, to engage our elders, learn from their mistakes. That's one of the things I loved about Sekou Odinga, is that he shared all his experiences. Nothing was private. If you asked it, he would tell it to you. Of course, you had to earn that, you know, and you earned that through your work, through your practice, because anybody could say anything, but there's people who are true to their word, who say what they mean and mean what they say. So I think that's very important that we understand who our political prisoners are and the work that we need to do. So, you know, brother, I know we have about 3 more minutes. So I know you spoke about reading the statement. So you want to take that time to do that and let people know what's happening with Hala and what they can do to support your cause or our cause, because you are of us.
Now, the statement is long, so I'm not going to read it all, but I do want to just close out on some of it and just give some highlights from it, if that's okay. And
not a problem, brother.
Yeah, just to echo what you're saying, shout out to that, and free all our political prisoners. You know, Mamiya, Kamal Siddiqui, Joy Powell, Jalil Al-Amin, and the list goes on. And it's important that we understand too that our political prisoners have been unhoused as well too. They have been snatched from our communities, right? And we need them to be housed back in our communities as well too, right? We need them free. We need them out. And we understand in that unhousement, in that unhousing of our community, particularly our prisoners of war, our political prisoners, our captured freedom fighters, they are living in conditions that are genocidal. The foods that they being served, the medical treatment, right? So we got to also understand that the unhousing and the attack on our house and snatching of us, not only does it kill us in real time, it's generational. It's low intensity warfare that break us down over time as well that we got to pay attention to. Another thing I want to highlight real quickly too is that a lot of our families are being evicted too, not just how, this ain't about holla. A lot of our personal families' rents are going up, being evicted. And a lot of this is being led historically by slum landlords. And a lot of them have connection to Palestine and the Israel conflict, the Zionist movement. So there's a lot of work to understand with housing, real estate, the Zionist movement, attack on Black communities. And it's really important for us to really get our current analysis up to date, right? Because it's not a one thing. It's, it ain't just a tenement issue. It's not just a cooperative economic issue. It's not just that we need our land back and we need land, right? It's all of those conversations and figuring out what's our programs and how we roll as a community with those things in mind too. And how we being attacked on all of those ways that unhouse us and keep us from decent living and survival and our birthright. And closing to get to the letter, this is a group of community-based organizations that were working at the old YMCA. So it's not just Holla. It's a coalition of us. And we say we are the 135th Street Black Legacy Successors, a coalition of grassroots community programs. And we have been illegally locked out of the commercial space of the historical Jackie Robinson YMCA at 181 West 135th Street, located in Central Harlem, by this slum landlord named John Basmanova. Basmanov. John Bassanova. This is a matter of grave importance and is upon us, and we need your support and solidarity as our communities are experiencing mass violence, mass displacement, ethnic cleansing around the world, from Haiti to Palestine to Sudan to the Congo. This is a time that we follow the lead of our family in the global South and the student movement locally, and we got to take back our spaces. Right? This is a community, a local, national, and international issue of how slum landlords in the state and local and global policies are attacking local community and killing us, unhousing us. And Holla sees this as a local, national, and global struggle that's not just about us. We would love for you to get in contact with us. You can reach us at let me give y'all Jasiri, one of the organizers at Holla. We're gonna give you his phone number. If you got any questions, 917-615-7372. We're looking for, like I said, elders. We're looking for community members. We're looking for lawyers. We're working with the tenants of the old YMCA because they've been going through struggle with the slum landlord for the last 3 years, and they have the slum landlords in court. The slum landlord is responsible for over 3,000 housing preservation department complaints and 100 more violations across the city. This person has real estate and buildings all across New York City, violating Black people, brown people all across New York City. So once again, this is not just a Holla issue, not just a 135th Street issue. This person here is setting up shop and setting up systematic displacement and genocide, and he's connected to many other people like him in New York, across the country, and across the globe that are rolling out these practices on our communities. So please follow up with that, and we look forward to learning from other folks, taking questions, and getting support to get our land and our buildings back. Peace.
Peace. All right, brother. So we're about to sign off, but let's provide that number again, brother.
Once again, Jasiri Alturo from Holla. You can follow up with him if any questions at 1917-615-7372. 917-615-7372. 917-615-7372.
All right, brother. So we're going to sound off. Appreciate your time because I know how valuable it is. What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the
free
call?
Free them all. Free them all.
Free them all. Don't let political prisoners die in prison. Peace, y'all.
Free the land.